Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition and we turned out to poem 726. We thirst at first, 'tis nature's act. Now I think this is an important poem for us because in many ways we're back to Emily's dancing with the idea of being thirsty. You'll remember, of course, success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need. Do you guys remember when we did 132? I bring an unaccustomed wine to lips long parching next to mine and summon them to drink. Cracking with fever they essay. I turn my brimming eyes away and come next hour to look. The hands still hug the tardy glass. The lips I could have cooled, alas, are so superfluous cold. I would as soon attempt to warm the bosoms where the frost is lain. Age is beneath the mold. Some other thirsty there may be, to whom this would have pointed me, had it remained to speak. And so I always bear the cup, if haply mine may be the drop, some pilgrim thirst to slack. If haply any say to me, unto the little unto me, when I at last awake. Of course, the recognition there, Christ saying, as you gave someone a drink of water, you gave it to me. You'll remember when we did 566. A dying tiger moaned for drink. I hunted all the sand. I caught the dripping of a rock and bore it in my hand. His mighty balls in death were thick, but searching I could see a vision on the retina of water and of me. 'Twas not my blame who sped too slow. 'Twas not his blame who died while I was reaching him, but 'twas the fact that he was dead. And you'll remember when we did 715 as well. She played the game. The world feels dusty when we stop to die. We want the dew then. Honors taste dry. Flags vex a dying face. But the least fan stirred by a friend's hand cools like the rain. Mine be the ministry when thy thirst comes, and Hybla balms dews of Thessaly to fetch. Now, I think that this is Emily. This poem, first published, by the way, in 1896, was actually called Thirst. Of course, she never titled any of her poems, but this poem is called Thirst. I think that Emily is dancing now with the John 4 passage, a famous passage in the King James Bible. She would have read it this way, John 4, starting at verse 5. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away into the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whoso drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman saith unto him, Sir, give me this water that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw. Now I think, and the scholar Sharon Leitner, and I'm borrowing heavily from her observations on this one, she calls this poem an anatomy of human thirst, and I think she's very accurate about that. We're going to see in this poem three kind of interesting and interlocking manifestations of thirst. You have, in the beginning, physical thirst of the infant, right? You have the physical and emotional thirst of the final hours when one is dead or dying. And then, of course, the spiritual thirst, which is immortal life. Now, I want you to note that this poem, unlike many of other Emily's poems about death and the moment of death and the possibility of immortality, where there's maybe a note of sarcasm or irony, here you have a certain level of optimism that's quite remarkable. She says it this way, We thirst at first, 'tis nature's act, and later when we die, a little water supplicate of fingers going by. It intimates the finer want, whose adequate supply is that great water in the west, termed immortality. Now, just to remind, immortality she uses in 41 of her poems. And you'll remember when we did poem 135, water is taught by thirst, land by the ocean's past, transport by throe, peace by its battle-told, love by memorial mold, birds by the snow. We notice she begins with we. We've called our series Chats with Emily for a poem like this. Reasons for a poem like this. She includes you in this, and she says, at first we all thirst. That is to say, it's nature's act, where later we're going to come to the same thirst again. The same thirst at the beginning of our life and at the end of our life. If you can't get a drink when you're a baby infant, you die, and the same is true as you're dying. You long for water. Notice she'll call it a little water supplicant. By the way, she uses this word little in 172 poems. I've commented on it a number of times with you. Of fingers going by, you'll remember our reading of 7:15, that reaching out to kind of clutch maybe the cup or whatever. It intimates, that is to say, the longing for water, the finer want. Now, I think Emily's not just playing with the John 4 passage, as we said, but I think Jesus, obviously, Christ in his story of John 4, is really intimating that old Psalm 23 that everyone knows, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. That idea that a little bit of good drinking is always going to be what we long for. And it intimates the finer want. Notice, I shall not want, Psalm 23, whose adequate supply is that, notice, capitalized, great water in the west, great water in west, all capitalized. Go back to line 6 of 721 to be reminded that Emily usually puts heaven in the west, termed immortality. Now, again, this idea that there's a promise of something beyond that she says, I think I can look forward to, but I've been thirsty all my life, as we all understand it. I think our message here at 2A is that there's many different thirsts in life, and they don't necessarily end with the very last. Of course, think about our study of Plato's Phaedo and Socrates' final moments, and there it is, a cup of hemlock sitting there. Of course, he's gonna drink that hemlock and leave his life. It's interesting to juxtapose that from a drink or a cup that would produce life. Obviously, we think about the poisoned chalice or the poisoned cup in any number of texts, especially, of course, Hamlet 5. At 2B, well, the optimistic tone, I want us to emphasize that for our study here at 3A. I mentioned John 4 and Psalm 23. I think Emily is dancing with the religious texts of her upbringing and her childhood. Finally, at 3B, what is your greatest thirst? And who is it that's providing it? I hope Emily is doing some of that. Thank you.